What if the solution to your teen's sleep is not a stricter bedtime routine, or you yelling at them to get off the phone or get off the device and go to sleep, or a stricter app that makes them get into the room and do what you've told them to do? What if the real solution to your child's sleep is that connection, is that bonding, is that routine? Hello, I am Dr. Lum Frundi. I am a pediatrician and founder of Generational Wellbeing. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. In today's video, we'll talk about sleep, specifically teens' sleep. As a parent of a teen, you may have noticed your sweet baby suddenly transformed and morphed into this kid who was just irritable, exhausted, tired all the time, and just high-risk behaviors and all those things, and you wonder what happened. So every day in clinic, I see kids who were constantly working them up for chronic fatigue. They're just irritable. There's that change. So what if the sleep could be the thing that's causing the irritability, the high-risk behavior, the lack of focus, and all of those things you're seeing in your teenagers? So today's video will break down how to help your child sleep by connection and by nutrition and by routine. If this is your first time joining me, thank you, welcome. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tag a parent who has a teen and who is going through this rough phase with a teen who is not able to get that restful, restorative sleep they need for them to function properly. So let's dive in. So when we talk about teen sleep, a lot of times we feel like at some point our teenagers get into this phase where they're constantly irritable. Like I said, their mood changes, they're tired and stuff. Sometimes it's not just laziness. Usually as we transition into that teenage phase, there is a transition or a shift in their circadian rhythm, sort of a social jet lag where their whole rhythm shifts. It's like you going to a totally different time zone where it takes you a while to adjust when you move from one time zone to another. We've noticed that even if it's a 2-hour difference, that makes a huge difference on how your body adjusts to it. It takes you a while to adjust, but unfortunately for teenagers, it's not just that 1 or 2 day time period where they adjust to that jet lag or that change in the rhythm. So they end up having this time where they have chronically deprived sleep, because it is a phase of transition, like the change in the shift in the circadian rhythm. So they have chronic sleep deprivation because of that, and over time it can lead to mood disorders where because they're not getting enough sleep, they are tired all the time, they're not able to focus at school, they are irritable. It's just call their name and they're like, what? They're also engaging in high-risk behavior because their minds are all over the place. You've not been able to hit that reset button and to help have that restorative sleep so they can think clearer. So part of it is not just your teenager being teens, it's your biology. And then to top it off too, with that social jet lag, so to speak, with that shift in the circadian rhythm, their school times, they have to get up early to go to school. So not only are they now getting to the point where they're scheduled to sleep a little bit later, they're also scheduled to wake up a little bit earlier. So as a result, it's very difficult for them to get that 8 to 10 hours sleep that they need to be able to function properly throughout the day. And you can see if this is something that's happening over time, and then it will lead to the chronic fatigue that we're seeing in teenagers. It will lead to the irritability, the mood changes, and all the other things that we're seeing with our teenagers. But here's why we have this video today, to first bring that awareness that it may not just be your teenager who's lazy, but they have that natural shift and they're going through a perpetual social jet lag throughout their whole teenage years. So first. Secondly, there is hope, right? Because there was a study that was done and presented at a sleep conference in 2025 where they surveyed teenagers, and they noticed that the kids who had better in-person connections with their family, engaging at dinner time, and had better structure, had better sleep and lower sadness scores compared to kids who were more socially distant and had more instead of an in-person connection, they had more social connection where they're connecting more on their devices, high-tech connections and stuff. They had poorer sleep and higher sadness score. So how do we then take this evidence, apply it now to help our kids? Well, before we even go there, COVID, we know COVID was social distances. I'm sure if you can remember what COVID did, because of COVID, we were socially distant, away from everybody. And sometimes even in some homes, we had to be away from each other. And over that time of COVID, with social distancing, we noticed that there was an increase in anxiety, mood disorders, and so many things in our teenagers too. Increased suicidal ideation or suicide scores were increased. So if COVID taught us anything, it should be that we need to connect even more, because we need that in-person social connection too. Now, how can we use all of this now to help our teens to get better sleep, hence improving not only their physical well-being, but also their emotional well-being? First, we know routines help, but the routines now, we want to start the routine with knowing this information starting from dinner time. When we have dinner time, that is time to kind of pause and connect. Another survey done a long time ago where they asked high school students about their mood and their connections and what they wanted. I think the question was what they wanted their teachers or their caregivers to know. Most of the kids did say they wanted them to see them. They don't feel like they're listened to. They don't feel like they're heard and stuff. And imagine if you're in an environment where you don't feel listened to and heard, it becomes a chaotic environment where you don't feel like you're a part of it. So see, all of this research over time is really building down to that point where, yes, even though the biology is moving, we want to be able to buffer that by creating the opportunities to connect, for creating that time for them to feel like they're seen and they're connected. So time where we can have dinner time with as a family, just to pause, and as we're nourishing our bodies, we're nourishing that emotional well-being, we're connecting with our kids too. It could be a time where you talk about your day, you talk about the plans of the next day. That way they feel like they're a part of the family, they feel like they're being seen, they feel like they're being heard. Now, this is not a time for a lecture or to tell them what they're doing or what's not going right and what's not going wrong and stuff, but it's a really time to really sit back and just connect. Like, how was your day? This is what we're going to do tomorrow. That way they're not waking up and suddenly get up, we're going here and we're going there. That gets them into a place where they're constantly not in the loop. And once you get into the place where your expectations are very different from everyone else, there's that constant chaos that leads to a lot of tension in the household environment. And we know environment too is really important when it comes to sleep. So this is really setting the tone, not only for connection, but setting the tone also for the emotional environment, where we're starting out by nurturing our bodies and our emotions, where it is a calm environment that promotes sleep. While we're connecting with them too at the dinner table, engaging in listening and connecting with that emotional well-being, we want to also make sure that what we're putting in our bodies to things that will help support sleep. Now, what am I talking about? We want to make sure that we're getting foods in for dinner, especially, that would promote either the production of melatonin or help your body relax and calm. So foods that are high in tryptophan, because tryptophan is an amino acid that eventually converts and produces melatonin, that is important for sleep. So where do we find that? We find that in poultry, we find that in dairy products. So hence, you remember back in the day they used to say a warm cup of milk will help promote sleep. That's actually truth, because milk also and dairy products will contain tryptophan, whether it's a meal with poultry or poultry, that can help promote tryptophan. Dark leafy greens too is one of the good ones there. So another thing that helps too is adding foods that are rich in magnesium, because magnesium helps to calm the body, helps to relax the muscles, again promoting and setting up the stage for sleep, where you can find those in nuts and seeds, dark leafy greens, and some dairy products will contain that too. So planning the meal not only to connect but also to nourish with those foods that will promote relaxation is very important. We're adding those foods that are high in tryptophan, high in magnesium, omega 3s are good too, calcium is good too, but you can find it in this group of foods that includes leafy greens, poultry, seafoods are good and rich in omega 3s as well, and nuts and seeds. So adding those kinds of foods then are really key, where we're connecting in both ways. Now, while we're doing that, we want to reduce or eliminate the consumption of certain foods that may actually go to disrupt sleep. What we're talking about, the biggest thing I've seen is really caffeine, and caffeine can be hidden in so many different things, especially in drinks. Caffeine is in some sodas and teas and even some medications that will have caffeine in it that may go a long way to interrupt sleep. So before you're drinking or adding anything in there, you want to be mindful to make sure you don't have anything that would disrupt sleep. High sugary beverages, the sodas again and stuff can be where it promotes or has that energy spike. Meanwhile, we're trying to kind of calm things down. I remember I counseled a patient or a parent who toddler, not a teenager, and this kid would not go to sleep, and they're just going through their routine and what they were eating, especially at dinner time. Come to find out, they drank tea all the time. It's just iced tea, right? All the time. And there was soda in that iced tea, and once that particular thing was eliminated, the kids' sleep started to improve. Of course, you want to have that structure and that routine that will build together to promote. So just making sure that we're being aware, starting from that dinner time, for emotional and for physical well-being, because once that environment is good, we're talking now about that emotional environment, because we know if you were in an environment that is hyper stressful, there's full of conflict and there's no calm in it, it's hard for your brain to calm down and go to sleep. So those are the biggest things. So the third final thing I did talk about routine and structure. Again, once you get to the point where you start out, then the structure for nighttime starts out at the dinner table. If you have a thing now that we have structure where we start dinner at, whether depending on the end of the day, 6 to 7 p.m., everybody sits on the table, you're connecting, we're eating and nourishing the things that calm down our bodies. Our environment starts from there too, where we're in that relaxation phase to promote sleep and stuff. Then after that, you can then have either wind down time, your team can do homework, your team can do whatever they need to do, but you've already set up this stage for them to be able to relax. You've set up that environment physically, emotionally for them to relax and then go to sleep. It reduces the amount of screen time too, right? Because otherwise the kid, what I've noticed most kids will do is they're either on in the room, again, socially isolated, on the device, whether playing games and stuff. All of those things that are stimulating the mind, we're removing that and replacing them with the in-person connection. We're helping them with the calm and the nourishment they need for sleep. How can you apply this then? What's the takeaway and call to action here? One, having consistent mealtime dinners with your kids, whether starting 3 to 4 times a week. Second, while we're having dinner now, including foods that will help promote sleep, whether it's a salmon with leafy greens. If dinner was earlier and you decide to have that evening snack to prevent that nighttime hunger, you want to go for the nuts and seeds and stuff that will help promote, or a glass of milk that will help promote the sleep. And then finally, removing any beverages that have hidden caffeine in it that can interrupt sleep. Well, as always, thank you for watching today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tag a parent who has a teenager who has been irritable and refusing to go to sleep at nighttime. Until next time, I am Dr. Lum.